Hello and welcome to the class. My name is Fred Curry. This is the introduction to the general syllabus structure for my Logic and Critical Thinking course. Now I must stress that it is still extremely important to read the course syllabus and all of the introductory information for the course. This presentation does not cover all the detail for the course. You should think of it as kind of a quick start guide with audio and visual material to get you more quickly acclimated to the class and to emphasize the more important material. But material not emphasized here can still be of critical importance to you in your final score. In other words, it will not be a defense for your failure to accomplish some task or to follow some policy to merely mention that it was something that wasn't mentioned in the audiovisual introduction to the course. You're responsible for reading the full syllabus and all the policies in the student handbook that the college provides you with as well. I provide you with this audiovisual introduction as a sort of courtesy to allow you to acclimate to the course more quickly and in a more fun way. This course will be broken into a number of modules. If this is a 16-week course, you will be doing one module a week. If this is an 8-week course, you will be doing roughly twice that. Each module will have one or more presentation, usually an audio-visual PowerPoint type presentation like this one. I know that many online courses simply make you read all of your material. I tried to provide you with both audio and visual stimulation because I feel that students learn better this way. For students who are hearing impaired, there are closed caption versions of these presentations made available on YouTube. This particular presentation is simply designed to introduce you to the structure of the class. It will cover your duties and obligations, the general structure of the course modules, the basic public forums and public forum structure, the grading policy, the basic structure of forum assignments and how best to handle forum assignments, how quizzes work, how tests work, the essay, but only very briefly, the basic structure of the tests, the academic honesty policy, special grading columns, and some things you should make sure you do during the first week of class. There are a number of duties you need to be willing to commit to before continuing with this course. You should be willing to read about 30 to 40 pages a week in a 16-week course, more than this for a compressed course. Willing to log on at least 3 times spaced out over a week each week in a non-compressed 16-week course. In an 8-week course, it should be much more often than this. To check your email regularly. Daily is good, every 48 hours if this is not possible. Be responsible for checking the gradebook periodically during the semester. Posting regularly on the forums. Reading the posts of 25 other students a week on the forums. Responding at least as often as required by the forum assignments. More or additional participation is highly encouraged. Taking the quizzes on time. Taking the tests on time. Turning in any essays on time. Being willing to ask questions and ask for any help needed. This is especially important for an online class because I can't look out over the class and see if a student has a confused look on her or his face. You need to take the initiative and let me know that you need help. I am honestly more than willing to help all of my students, but I can't offer help if I don't know that help is needed. Students can ask me questions in 2 ways. The raised hands forum, this is for questions that everybody might benefit from. Such questions are questions relating to the whole class. Also through email. This is for more personal or individual questions, or if you're just too embarrassed to ask a question publicly. Course modules are broken down into 3 major sections. The introductory section, you should think of this as the lecture part of the class. It usually includes some introductory text, a link to the main presentation, a link to a closed caption version of the presentation, usually hosted on YouTube, sometimes additional links to supplementary material, often a list of links contained within the presentation for reference. Next, a practice section, which includes, and you should think of this as a homework or group work part of the class, and it usually includes the forum assignment for the module, a link to any quiz or test that is required, and any other sundry assignments or additional material. Thirdly, a review or summary section, and you should think of this as a way to summarize what we have done during the module, and it includes sometimes a summary of terms, sometimes a summary of key points, sometimes reminders of important things to do. This section will vary a great deal depending upon the nature of the module. Many courses may contain additional forums as necessary, but most will contain at least the following. An Introductions forum. This forum is really only applicable during the beginning of the semester. Use this forum to introduce yourself during the first week of class. I'll introduce myself here as well. When you go into the forum itself, it'll tell you what to cover. If you feel comfortable, feel free to include a picture. Of course, you shouldn't share anything you do not feel comfortable sharing. The whole purpose of this is to make the class feel more tightly knit. You're going to be talking to each other a lot in the forums this semester. The more comfortable we get with each other during the semester, the better. It is often more difficult to get to know each other in an online course unless people take the initiative, so I've set up this forum, as well as the one I will talk about next, for this purpose. I hope that you also feel free to respond to each other's introductions if you find that you have some things in common. It would be great for people in this class to make new friends just as they would in a real-time course. The Coffee Shop. The Coffee Shop is a forum for free discussion that has nothing to do with philosophy. You may find, for example, through the introduction section that you and somebody else online both root for the same sports team, or play the same MMORPG, or have some other hobby in common. Feel free to start a thread and talk about it in the coffee shop. Likewise, in one of the other forums we use for philosophy discussions, you may find yourself wishing to go off on a tangential discussion. You may want to discuss politics, or continue a conversation beyond the closing of a thread. Feel free to do so. The coffee shop is a playground for the students to make their own and enjoy the way they wish, as long as it doesn't in some way violate school policies such as racist language or attacking each other and so forth. Debates are fine, even encouraged in philosophy, but no attacking individual people. Attacking arguments is fine, not persons. Feel free to also post links that you find fun or amusing. Anything you would like to share. Think of the coffee shop as a way to make friends. Raised hands. This is an important forum. This is where I check to see if students have any questions for me. I check this daily. If you have any questions to ask me, and you think other students may also benefit from the answer, please ask the question here. Of course, if you are too embarrassed to ask the question publicly, you can email me instead, but I urge you to share with the class so that everybody can benefit. Questions that relate to you and your own situation specifically are the best questions to email me about privately. I try to check both the Raised Hands forum and my email every non-holiday weekday, daily, at least once. Often more than that. I'm pretty good about responding. Please be responsible when asking your questions. By this I mean, please be specific. Oftentimes students will ask questions that are too vague for me to give a very good answer to. I often have to spend a day asking them for more specifics, then they have to spend a day writing me back, then I have to spend another day writing them back the answer. So it takes them 4 days to get an answer they could have gotten back in just one if they would have given me the details I needed regarding their question in the first place. By that time, it might be too late for them or for you to say take the quiz that might have passed by, for example. So when asking your questions, try to put yourself into my shoes. Think about your audience and ask what information I need to give you the information you need. Anonymous comments. Your comments and thoughts are important to me. I care about my students and I really want to know about how the class is going for you throughout the semester. You are encouraged to tell me directly through email, but I realize that sometimes students may not feel comfortable saying something they are not happy with directly to the instructor. Seaport unfortunately does not have the ability to enable anonymous feedback directly. So, in the anonymous comments forum, I simply provide a link to an off-site forum. If you would like to give me anonymous feedback, you can register for free off-site with any name you want, so I have no idea who you are, and then you can give me anonymous feedback. I truly care about your classroom experiences. Please do not use this to ask me questions, however. Because this is off-site, I check it at most once a week. So if you ask a question there will not be a response given back to you very quickly. If Coastline ever moves to an LMS that allows for anonymous feedback, I will actually allow for anonymous question asking as well, but at the moment this just isn't feasible. Anyway, I hope that you all feel free to talk to me directly, but if you don't, please make use of this feature. I care about what you have to say, and I try to create an environment where everybody feels respected and free to speak her or his mind. DQ forums. There will be DQ or discussion question forums for each module, except for the very last one, Module 16. In these forums, you're to post your discussion question answers. You are also to post your responses to other students' questions for most assignments here. It is important to make sure you label all your DQs as primary response. If you do not do this, you risk not receiving all points for the assignments. With a post of hundreds of students to go through, labeling becomes very important. The details of the DQs will be discussed later. And again, there'll be one DQ question for each module, except for, of course, the very last week of courses. Quiz answer discussions. I do not discuss the answers to tests, but I do post and discuss the answers to quiz questions sometime after the quiz is due. This is to help students review for the test, because quizzes are not worth nearly as many points as the tests. In some classes, I do not go over all quiz questions, but only a smaller subset of them each time. There may be some additional fun forums, such as logic puzzles or riddles. There may also be some additional utility forums, depending on what the class needs. This was just meant to outline the basic forums of the course. Grading structure. This course is graded on 1,000 points. 900 points and greater at the end of the semester is an A. 800 points and greater, but below 900 is a B. 700 points and greater, but below 800 is a C. 600 points and greater, but below 700 is a D. And less than that is an F. 300 points is from forum assignments. There are 15 forum assignments worth 20 points each. You are allowed to miss one of them for free and still receive 20 points for it. Doing that assignment will not give you 20 extra credit points, but if you do all 15 of the assignment, it is something I will take into consideration if you have a borderline score at the end of the semester. Without a reason to bump up scores, cutoff for scores are final. Other factors for consideration are significant improvement and quality of forum posts. You should not typically expect your score to be bumped up at the end of the semester. Score bumps are for when something exceptional happens. There is a reason for this. If a student has 795 points and says, "I'm just 5 points away, please give me a B," then if I were to just bump up that student 5 points for no reason, I would, in order to be fair, have to bump up every other student by 5 points as well. This means that students who were at 790 points would now be at 795 points. Now these students would email me and say, "Hey, I'm just 5 points away, please give me a B." If I bump them up, then in order to be fair, I would have to bump everybody else up 5 points too. This means that students who were originally at 785 points would now just be 5 points away from a B, and so on. There has to be a good reason to raise students above the score that the points say they have earned at the end of the course. Now, there are usually a couple of extra credit opportunities during the semester as well. Students who didn't make use of these opportunities or go the extra mile in terms of quality on forum posts or show improvement on tests or do all their DQs, even the one that was not required, if they did not do at least some of these things to show extraordinary effort, then they should not expect the extraordinary measure of having their grade raised past what their final score shows that they earned at the end of the semester. Again, this isn't a matter of being mean or hard, it is simply because there has to be a way to distinguish these bumps. Otherwise, we have the problem I just described a few moments ago. DQs are the single easiest way to earn points in this class. They are graded on apparent effort, completeness, and engagement, not correctness. This means that you can get a very large number of points in this class just by being willing to do the work. Doing the math, if you earn all the points for the DQs, then you can still pass this course with a C if you only get approximately 58% of all the other points possible in the course. I'll repeat that. If you earn all the points for the DQs, then you could still pass the class with a C, even if you only get approximately 58% of all the other points possible, and that is not even counting the extra credit. So if you put real effort into this class, you should pass. But that means doing the readings, making real quality DQ posts, and doing all the other assignments. There are 3 tests with a total of 460 points. The first test and the final are worth 150 points each. The second test is worth 160 points. 40 of this is in test form, and the other 120 points is in the form of an extended essay, which you have about 2 weeks to write. This means that the final draft is expected to be well thought out, edited, and polished. I want you to turn in something you're proud of. In addition to the test, there are 6 quizzes worth 40 points each, so that is 240 points total. The purpose of the quizzes is to prepare you for the tests, and the answers, or at least some of them, depending on the course, will be discussed in the forums for your review. If you add all that up, it's 1,000 points. 240 plus 150 plus 150 plus 160 plus 300. In addition, there is the letter of agreement. You must sign this letter of agreement, and if you sign it during the first week of the class, you get 5 extra credit points. It is very important to sign this letter because it is one of the methods by which I check the online equivalent of attendance. It helps to ensure that you do not get dropped from the class. So both for the sake of getting an early jump on the class and receiving extra credit, and because it's required, I suggest you sign the letter of agreement before doing anything else. Of course, read it. There is the favors column that is worth 10 extra credit points. That will be explained later. If, for any reason, due to quirks in the system, or what have you, we end up with less than 1,000 points total, I'll create an assignment worth whatever we are short and simply give students 100% on that many points so that we have 1,000 points in the class. So this only helps you by raising your grade. If, for any reason, we end up with more than 1,000 points at the end of the semester, then congratulations again. This effectively means that you had a chance for extra credit, and it can only improve your score. In other words, no matter what, you will only be scored on 1,000 points at the end of the semester. This makes figuring out your final percent very easy. You just divide by 10. About DQs. This course is largely centered around the discussion forums, and the discussion forums are centered around the discussion questions we will do in every module, except for the very last one. We will do 15 of them. It is important to log on at regular intervals during the week. If you cannot log on multiple times during the week, this class is not a good fit for you. Almost every module will require you to make a primary post during the beginning of the week, usually due before Wednesday, make a response post, usually a response to another student's primary post, usually by Friday or Saturday of that same week. This means that at a minimum you will need to log on twice a week to do each DQ, but really 3 times a week, because first you have to get the reading assignment and view the presentation, and you probably want to do that on a separate day, or at least a separate session so you can absorb the material. So really logging on 3 times a week is probably the effective minimum, since you probably want to watch the presentation and do the readings first. My very firm suggestion is to log on at the beginning of the week, either Sunday or Monday, to view the presentation. Log back on later that week to do your primary post. Log on later in the week again to make your response post. And if you can log on every day to check messages, that is even better. But logging on 3 days a week is really a minimum. How to do the DQs. The online course can be seen as centered around the forum discussion questions. You should see these as centrally important to the class and should take them seriously. The DQs usually consist of 2 parts, though they may sometimes vary depending on the module. Make sure you read the DQ assignments carefully. The first part is the primary post question. This is usually a question or multiple questions to respond to. It may take research. It may require a response to a thought experiment. Make sure you read the question carefully. Make sure you answer all parts of the question, and make sure you label all parts of your answer. The second part of the assignment is usually a response post that requires you to respond to another student's post. This means that you have to log on later in the week and read posts by several other students, choose one to respond to, and make a useful response to that student. What is a useful response? That might depend on the assignment, but generally, you need to add to the conversation. Simply saying you agree or disagree with the poster is not enough. Remember, this is worth half the points of the forum assignment. It might not be half the work of the assignment, but it should take a considerable amount of time. You should think carefully about what you read and what you posted. Many students lose points on their response post because they post 1 or 2 lines that do not add to the conversation. Ways to add to the conversation are: add arguments, add examples, add analogies, add criticisms. Make sure you explain in detail everything you say. Think about how you would want somebody to respond to you. Not in terms of agreement. You might want people to agree with you, but assume that maybe people don't agree with you. What would you want from such a post? You would want enough detail to make sense of the objection, to improve your own thought process, and so forth. Also, make sure both your primary and response posts are labeled. This should be the first line of each post. The first word of each post should either be primary or response. Failure to do this could result in points. There are lots of students in this course. Not every DQ is read carefully, therefore. Essentially, with the number of students I have, every time a DQ is turned in, I'm given a novel's worth of text to read. DQs are spot checked, therefore. I scan them to make sure you're doing the assignment, and I pick some every module to read carefully. Note, it is a violation of the academic honesty policy to take advantage of the spot checking and try to cheat. For example, if you make blank or empty posts, or posts designed simply to look as if you made a response post but which contain garbage or nonsense or repeated post, and I catch it, that is considered cheating. Because you would be trying to take advantage of the nature of DQs, I will not go easy on this. This isn't the kind of thing that could be a misunderstanding. This would be directly trying to cheat and to get credit for something you didn't do. This will be reported to the college, and you will not only get a 0 for this assignment, but be docked at least 100 points in the class. That's if I don't simply drop you from the class outright for cheating. I will not go easy on cheating in the forums. Since forums are not graded for correctness, and you are even allowed to miss one of the forum assignments for free, it's the height of laziness to cheat in these forums. Also, it cheats other students of the response that you're supposed to be giving them, so it directly hurts others. So I will not go easy on this, so again, don't do it. Also, you shouldn't take this warning to mean that I read very few of the posts. I read as many of them as I have time for, I skim all of them, and such teach would be very likely to get caught. Even putting ethics aside, it's a high risk for almost zero reward. How quizzes work. The quizzes are designed to help you prepare for the tests. They are not worth as many points. Quizzes usually contain multiple choice and short answer questions. Sometimes the short answer questions are marked as essay-type questions to give students more room to write if they wish, but they simply require a sentence or two. In this particular course, there are 6 quizzes worth 40 points each. There's also a quiz discussion forum. After the quizzes have been turned in, I post the answers and explanations to help students prepare for the test. These are worth reviewing. Occasionally there are even test questions that are quite close, although usually not exactly like quiz questions. So review. Important. Sometimes quizzes are broken into 2 parts. This is because of the way student learning objectives are evaluated. Seaport only allows me to attach them to whole assignments. So in order to do that, I sometimes have to break the assignments up into multiple parts. This just means that you have to make sure that both parts are done, and that also there will be 2 columns in the gradebook. If anything, this helped you because it means that you can pause to study if you didn't think you did well on the first part. How the tests work. The tests are worth more points. They contain multiple choice questions as well as short answer and paragraph answer type questions. The answers are not discussed in the forums. For written answers in particular, make sure that you read the questions carefully. If the question asks for 2 examples, then give 2 examples, not 1. If the question asks for an example and an explanation of why the example is important, then that explanation is at least as important as the example itself. If you don't give the explanation, you will not get many of the available points. When answering written questions, remember what you are trying to do. You are trying to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding. Take your time and spell out your reasoning. You are usually given much more than enough time for the test if you are prepared. Reread your answers before submitting them and make sure that they make sense and that you don't skip important steps in the reasoning. Important. Sometimes tests are broken into 2 parts. This is because of the way student learning objectives are evaluated. Seaport only allows me to attach them to whole assignments, so in order to do that, I sometimes have to break the assignment into multiple parts. This just means that you have to make sure that you take both parts and that there will be 2 columns in the gradebook. If anything, it helps you because it means that you can pause to study if you think that you don't do well on the first section. Hints for taking the test and to a lesser extent quizzes. Of course, every test is going to be different, but here are some general hints for taking the test in this class. Carefully read the directions for each question. I cannot stress this enough. I would say about 40% of the points lost last semester, and hopefully this warning will change that, especially for written questions, is because students didn't read the questions carefully. If a question asks for 2 examples, give 2 examples. Don't give 1. If a question asks for an example other than the one used in the presentation or in the book, in other words, to make up your own, then make up your own. Don't use one from the book or the presentation. Be clear with your written answers. It's better to write too much to explain yourself than to write too little and leave me guessing. To be fair to others, I cannot just assume that you know what you do not say or what you're not clear about. Some students feel that they can hide behind being vague if they are not sure, and that teachers may give them the benefit of the doubt. I can assure you that this does not happen in college. We can only give you credit for answers that you have written, not what we think you might know if you were just a little bit clearer. Answer all parts of the question. Sometimes questions have multiple parts. Sometimes students only do one part. This is a mistake. If a question asks you to give an example of a fallacious or insidious advertising technique, for example, and to explain why some people might find it disturbing, then don't just give an example of this advertising technique. Also explain why people might find it disturbing. Answer all questions. Again, this is something I can't stress enough. You will almost always get at least some points for an attempted answer. Do not leave a question blank. I will always give at least 1 point on written answers that are attempted just to separate it from students who left the question blank. Answer all questions. The essay. I'm not going to talk much about the essay here, but the second test is divided into 2 parts, a small objective part, and then an essay that is worth the vast majority of the points for that test. The essay is an extended argument, and is meant to be a polished essay that you turn in. You'll be given more details about this essay when we get to the modules about writing arguments, but it is important to note that this is an important part of your score, an opportunity to demonstrate your critical writing skills, must be turned in on time, and something you are given about 2 weeks to do, and so is expected to be polished. Again, there is no tolerance for cheating on this. Cite your sources, even when things are not quoted directly, but just used, cite them. Also, we will be using Turnitin.com, so you should be warned that this has auto-plagiarism checks. Also, this is very important. This is an argument essay. This means that you are supposed to be giving an extended argument for a position. This is not an exposition essay. It is not meant to be like a newspaper article where you're merely explaining something. The idea is to give one long argument, which means establishing premises and considering and defending against potential counter-arguments. If you don't know what those are yet, don't worry, we'll be talking about that, but you should at least understand what the essay will expect of you in general. Academic honesty policy. Okay, here is some very limited information about the academic honesty policy. You are responsible for reading the whole policy in the handbook. This doesn't cover everything. You are expected to know the policy. Read it. Examples of academic dishonesty conduct. Taking an examination for another student or having someone else take an examination for oneself. Having another person or company do research and or writing of a report. Printing or sharing an online exam without the express authorization of the instructor. Stealing or attempting to change official academic records. Forging or altering grades. Obtaining answers or questions from another student before or during an examination. Falsely reporting or claiming to have experienced technical difficulties. Knowingly allowing another student to copy one's work. Sharing answers for take-home or online examinations unless otherwise authorized. Turning in a speech, essay, report, project, or paper done for one class to another class unless specifically authorized by the instructor of the second class. Offering another person's work as one's own. Intentionally impairing the performance of another student and or faculty member. Collusion, when any student knowingly or intentionally helps another student perform an act of academic dishonesty. And again, this doesn't cover everything, so make sure you read and know the academic honesty policy. Special grading columns. I want to draw your attention to a couple things about the gradebook. First is that it exists. You should check it regularly. If you think that something is wrong, it is incumbent upon you to tell me about it in time to do something. I do my best to double check for accuracy. Nevertheless, there are sometimes computer bugs. There are sometimes typos. And even the best of us can sometimes make mistakes. Instructors have thousands, tens of thousands of students throughout their careers, and it would be amazing if there was never ever a mistake. And students typically like to know how they are doing throughout the semester anyways, so it is a good idea to glance over your scores every once in a while and let me know if you think that there is a problem. The other main thing I want to draw your attention to is a special grading column you will see marked favors. you start off with 10 extra credit points in this column. Having 10 in this column is extra good. It means you have never asked me for a special favor in the class. By special favor, I mean that you have never asked me to break the rules in the course just for you. If you ask me to break the rules in the course for you, such as if you ask me to take a quiz late, or to take a test late, or to turn in a form assignment late, and I do it, I take away these 10 points. I do this for 2 reasons. First, to mark that you asked for a special favor. You asked me to break the rules in the course just for you. You are not guaranteed that I will do this for you just because I have this column. But if I do this for you, I have a record of it, so you know that I am very unlikely to do it again. Also, please note that having 10 points in this column does not mean that you are owed a favor. It does not mean that you get to take a test late. It does not mean that you will get to take a quiz late or turn in some assignment late. But rather than to say that I will never ever do such a thing no matter what your circumstances are, if I am asked, I will take away these 10 points if I decide to do it, and grant your request. I am not doing this so much to punish students, but because I've noticed that in some classes, almost all of my students are doing what they're supposed to be doing, while 1 or 2 legitimately need some favor, and then 1 or 2 think that they can continually change the rules and ask for the rules to be broken over and over again, 4, 5, sometimes 6 times during the semester, continuously asking to do things late. It's this last group of students that creates a situation that's unfair to others. So I am essentially doing this to protect everybody, to keep a system in which I can help people when they really desperately need it, but in which 1 or 2 people will not repeatedly bilk the system. Likewise, having used your favor counts against bumping you up at the end of the semester if you have a borderline grade. Not having asked for a special favor is a good thing. Also, and this is very, very important, please note that asking me questions or for help is not a favor. Posts or emails asking for help or for further clarification, or if the first answer wasn't good enough, you can do that as much as you want. That's never considered a special favor. The special favor column only gets dinged if you ask me to break a rule of the course for you. I want you guys to ask me questions and to ask for help. That is a good thing. It makes me think more highly of you. Also, getting a token put in the favor column isn't a major penalty. I don't mind occasionally doing favors for students when there is a real legitimate need. Sometimes the student's computer really does crash at a bad time. Sometimes the student's cat really does pee on her laptop, making it impossible to log on. Things happen. The reason why I keep track is to make sure that all students are not effectively cheated by 1 or 2 students trying to bilk the system. Okay, some things to make sure you do this first week. Read the letter of agreement. Sign the letter of agreement. Remember, it is worth 5 extra credit points if you do it the first week. Read the syllabus. Don't just depend on the audio-visual presentation. This was a quick start guide, remember. Make an introduction post. Don't put up anything you feel uncomfortable with, but I highly encourage you to be detailed. I will try to let you know some personal details about myself. The idea here is to make for a more comfortable, more friendly and fun environment. Maybe some of you will even make friendships that last beyond this class. Look at the first module. View the first presentation. Do the first DQ. Log on later in the week to do the first response for the first DQ. Regularly check your email. This is something to do throughout the semester, but start now. There are often several points of order emails at the beginning of the semester. Familiarize yourself with the list of numbers and links for Coastline so that you know where to go for support when you need it. If you need tech support, you want to go to tech support right away. I am probably not the best person or in the best position to help you with your computer myself. Ask the experts. I'm fairly skilled with computers in general because I enjoy them, but I am new to Seaport myself. I don't know all the ins and outs of the system. I am also not trained in troubleshooting, and I may not be familiar with the type of system you are using. I'm here to help you with the course content. For technical problems, please go to the technical support experts. If you come to me first, I won't get angry, but the problem is that you'll be wasting a day or 2 of valuable time. If some deadline depends on this, it might pass you by. You are making the decision to go to the wrong place, and that won't be an excuse. My response to you will probably be a suggestion to fix your problem, if one occurs to me, followed by an even stronger suggestion to contact the experts just in case. So you might as well just cut out the middleman and contact them directly. This is the technical assistance information I could find, but it might not be exactly what applies to you, so familiarize yourself with what the college has to offer. And I'll pause here for just a second or two so that you can write this down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do you have more questions? If you have questions that are not covered in the syllabus, you might also want to look at the FAQ, Frequently Asked Questions section. I try to add to this every semester, adding the most, frequently asked questions of students. This is a great place to go for quick answers. Of course, you can always email me as well. And that's it for this quick start introduction. I hope that you found this a quick and useful way to get started in the course. I also hope that all of you will truly enjoy this course, but also pick up some skills that will be useful to you in your future college courses, as well as in life in general after your college careers. I look forward to getting to know all of you and seeing what you have to write in the introduction sections. And with that, I'll let you get to work. Until next time.